Wake up, wake up. Man, that 49er game gave us a ton to talk about it, and we're going to talk about it right here, right now. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger, brought to you by Sam's Chowder House in Half Moon Bay. Ooh, Sam's Chowder House a whole lot better than the Niners right now, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I don't worry about lobster rolls the way 49ers fans need to worry about Brock Purdy after a late game injury. Right out of the we warned you, we told you so, F around and find out, say the kids. And that's what the 49ers did in a game that really meant nothing to the remainder of the year. It was equal parts, not embarrassing, very embarrassing, kind of impressive, solely unimpressive all at the same time. An awful lot of moving parts, as Larry said. And it's great to have you here. Thanks to Sam's Chowder House. Happy New Year's Eve, everyone. It is Tuesday, December 31st. We're coming to you a special day after show. And Larry, I mean, there's a lot of places to, pick up and start, but let's start with the end, because they played Brock just long enough for Dan Campbell to unleash a nickel safety blitz. And it basically got to Brock without, any pushback at all. The patchwork offensive line, I actually think, did a pretty damn good job throughout the game. But man, Dan Campbell sent an FU blitz at the end of that game, and it looks like Brock Purdy was very concerned about how his arm was feeling. The close-ups revealed an awful lot on Brock Purdy's face last night after that injury.
Yeah, just looking at the game story, Damon, and good morning. This is what he said. He said, I got hit on the backside, and basically just my arm was on fire, kind of a thing. I tried throwing a couple on the sideline, and I couldn't at that point. Purdy, of course, suffered a torn ulnar collateral ligament in his right elbow in January of 2023 during the NFC Championship game in Philly. Immediately, the questions were like, hey, how does it compare to Philly? And he wasn't very specific. He is set to undergo further testing on the elbow today. Shanahan suggested that the initial indication is that it's a nerve issue unrelated to the ligament. Purdy said, we did some tests with UCL stuff. I'm good in that regard, but we've just got to go get imaging on it tomorrow and see the whole thing. And then, of course, Shanahan spoke to the media first. He said the doctors told him they think the injury is some nerve stuff. Shanahan said he wouldn't think the injury is anything to be concerned about long-term, but that further testing would be needed to confirm that outlook. Shanahan, one more quote here. He says, I know everyone, when they hear about Brock's elbow and stuff, just like me, you think the elbow injury from a couple years ago, but just talking to the doctors, he just got hit in the right spot. When you get hit there, your nerves go and you can't feel much, but hopefully it will be all right. Here's the thing. As Damon just laid out very accurately, the Niners were down 12. There was 1:45 remaining in the game. He took a shotgun snap. He scanned the field. He tried to escape to his right. Brian Branch, who's a great player, greeted him there, wrapped him up, and brought him down for a sack. And as he rolled over, Pat O'Connor, the backup Lions defensive end, landed on Purdy, hitting his elbow with his hand and then his face mask. Purdy was slow to get up. He then made his way to the sideline, and then Dobbs replaced him. And then you could see Purdy on the sideline talking to the doctors who were looking at the right hand, wrist, arm area. He attempted some throws on the sideline, but was in pain and was unable to regain feeling in the elbow and didn't return the rest of the game.
I really don't know why.
It felt heavy in a sense. That's what he said.
I don't know why he was out there. And for Kyle to just brush this off like, oh, it might not be, the ligament. It's only nerve damage. Folks, nerve damage is not a better wrapping on an injury. Nerve damage is worse than a ligament in many ways because you can't really fix a nerve once it's damaged. Take it from someone who's had a stroke. My body is I've got nerve damage. My left ankle's never going to work the same again. No matter how hard I work it out, no matter how hard I rehab it, shit just don't work like it used to. So that's not the sunny side up of the injury. And again, why the player was in there at the moment in the game, at the moment in the season, I just do not understand it. Brock had a very, look, 2 brutal interceptions steal from him an otherwise impressive night of offense.
He was having a great night until the picks. I mean, he was 27 of 35 for 377 and 3 touchdowns and an incredible rushing touchdown.
It was an unbalanced night.
Those interceptions were just bad, man. You can't. Damon, I've been talking about this all year. I had a promo on KMBR saying, hey, when Brock throws a pick, the Niners lose, or when he turns it over, the Niners lose. And when he doesn't, the Niners don't lose. And the KMBR, changed out their creative director. So there wasn't nobody to update the promo. So when I was like, you know what? I'll wait till the promo is no longer true. And then I'll contact them and tell the powers that be. It's still true to this moment. When he turns the ball over, they've lost. When he avoids turning the ball over, they've won. That literally has held to form this entire season and still has. But once again, I went on the pregame show and told Adam Copeland and Dennis Brown and JD that, you know what? In my mind, it was reckless and unwise to put Brock Purdy out there behind Austin Pleasance and a bunch of guys that you just signed a couple weeks ago, and nobody seemed to think it was that big of a deal. I mean, I don't think it's like if you didn't think it was a big deal before the game, you sure as hell shouldn't have 19 questions and think it's a big deal after the game. To me, you got to be consistent, and we were consistent. We said yesterday, or was it 2 days ago? No, it was yesterday. It was yesterday. We said yesterday, don't play this guy. Risk reward. I mean, NFL coaches, Damon, do the risk reward thing on every goddamn play. I've seen Shanahan on 3rd and 15 run Juszczyk into the line instead of dropping his quarterback back to pass and maybe getting 15 or 20 yards. Why? Have they never had a 20-yard pass play? No, he's playing the odds that negative things can happen. Maybe he's backed up in his own territory. And so guess what? He does a gun run and then they punt. Okay, well, you know what? If you're going to measure risk reward on 3rd and 15 in a random game as far in protecting your quarterback from harm's way, why the hell would you put your starting quarterback out there behind 3/5 of a makeshift line against a really good team? And then to me, it was bad enough to start him, Damon, but where it's really criminal is you played him a half. He showed what he had. You're in the game. But once the game's gone and it's all jailbreak, there's a point when you lose connection on the scoreboard and you no longer have offensive balance. And that's what the Niners did. They had 16 straight passes. When you have 16 straight passes, the D linemen are no longer playing the run. They're all just shooting up field, gearing for the sack. Once the defense is in that mode, get him off the field. And for nobody on the Niner headsets to say, Kyle, let's get our starting quarterback off the field instead of potentially getting him seriously hurt. No, we have to get him seriously hurt. And this tire fire of a fucking season is that much worse. And it's
you have all that unbalanced offense. There's no exploration of running backs. We didn't see Abinaconda at all.
He was inactive.
Didn't see Jacob Cowing from scrimmage. Hey, we got a Ricky Pearsall game. Congratulations to Ricky Pearsall. He had a really good game. George Kittle caught everything that was thrown at him, and he doesn't need to play another snap this season. He's over 1,000 yards. You would hope that he gets shut down. This team even messed around with a near Nick Bosa injury. He had to go into the blue tent after a stinger in his neck after some friendly fire contact. Hey, that's just football. But again, remove the player from the that's just football level of injury in games that do not matter for players who do matter going forward for your future. And the 49ers decided to ignore the situation they were in for this competitive illusion. And look, the patchwork offensive line, played a lot better than I thought it would. Really, I was pretty impressed, all things considered, until the very end, and the man should not have even been on the game. I am already seeing, the noodle arm, the Brock Purdy hater parade comes out and gets to do its stupid lap today. You stupid lap your Brock Purdy hate after everything all the time. I'll grant you those 2 picks sucked. He sailed them. Those weren't good. Here's what Brock Purdy is. He's the 3rd best quarterback in franchise history. And if that's not good enough for you, you picked the wrong franchise. It's time for the I don't like Brock crowd to go pick another team. He's not going anywhere. Okay.
Well, I normally don't like to, tell anybody anything as far as, go find another team. But, at some point, you're going to have to, the constant drumbeat of Brock sucks, Kyle sucks.
Right, bro.
He's going to have to end. But why? Because they're not going anywhere. And by the way, Brock Purdy last year was 4th in the NFL in the MVP voting, won the NFC Championship against the same Lions team by playing great in the second half, and wound up losing the Super Bowl to the best quarterback on the planet in overtime. And now here we are, less than a calendar year later, and he's crap. That to me is a little too knee-jerk. That to me is a little too bipolar Bob. That to me is a little bit of you're all over the place and you're kind of a circus. If within a calendar year you're saying, Sam Darnold should not be in front of Trey Lance on the depth chart, and then literally less than a year later, Brock Purdy should not be coming back and they should go get Sam Darnold. I mean, that's just a little too bipolar for me. I just think everybody needs to calm down. Well, was last year all Brock? No. Was this year all Brock? No. I think that's probably the best way I could say it, Damon. Well, last year was not all Brock. He was Brock and friends. And this year, this is not all on Brock. This was Brock and the erosion of friends.
Well, so, the people who were angry at last night, just forget it. I'm not here to talk about last year. I don't give a shit anymore. I'm just talking about last night. People are saying, well, Brock is the reason why they lost this game. Look, the 2 interceptions didn't help you. But Brock helped you win this game with nearly 400 yards passing, nearly 500 yards of offense. He scored 4 touchdowns, 3 in the air, 1 on the ground. And where you lost this game, as you saw your team go out and score 34 points, was a defense that didn't get off the field all night. Your defense doesn't force a punt all night, and you're saying, fuck our quarterback? Your defense gave up 40 and didn't allow a punt all night. But the quarterback's the problem? What are you people even doing? Why do you watch football? You don't even understand what you're looking at. You don't get what's going on. Look, Brock Purdy, there's a lot to like. There's a lot to not like. But the not to like it crowd, not to likes it a ridiculously amount. Okay,
he completed almost 90% of his passes in the first half. He was nearly perfect. He only had 2 incompletions. He had a perfect passer rating. He finished the game 27 of 35 for 377 and 3 touchdowns, but 2 picks. And you cannot throw those picks. Now, the first pick was he just sailed it. I mean, it's a physical mistake. He just sailed the ball. He just threw it higher than he wanted to throw it. So physical mistakes happen. That happened. The second interception, to me, it's on Brock being aggressive, but it's also on the 49ers with a very similar. I mean, I haven't watched the All-22 yet, but man, it seemed like that route was a very similar route, and it seemed like they had run that play a number of times. That was their 16. They ran 16 straight passing plays. And what I saw on that play, when I saw it just on the live replay, was Kirby Joseph getting extra depth, Damon, on his drop, right? So he's literally down the field. And you can see the receiver running his route on the left, but you can see Kirby Joseph's face and his helmet. It's totally directed towards Brock Purdy. And as soon as Brock brought the hand off the ball, Kirby Joseph started to break then. Yeah. He broke like 12 yards on that pass. He was coming. he actually jumped the receiver. He was probably 3.5, 4 yards in front of the receiver when he had that pick. So he jumped that route. Brock's got to see that. But at the same time, I thought they got a little too predictable. And guess what happens when you throw 16 straight passes and you get a little predictable with your route tree? Guys jump stuff. That's what happened.
Look.
By the way, can you hear my Gardner in the background?
I hear a little something in the background. I thought it was like a Microsoft window opening or a dun 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 dun. It's all right.
Gardner has decided the Gardner here. Actually, it's not even my Gardner.
First of all, look at you, Mr. Gardner. I got a Gardner. Look at
it's a complex. The gardening company, they never blow the leaves out. Here we are, we're doing a studio. We're the guy's like literally in my ear right now with a blower. There's leaves flying everywhere.
Did I ever tell you
I won't be able to give him my normal tip because I can't cut out in the middle of the show.
Did I ever tell you my Oracle getting cleaned up story? So they used to clean up old Oracle Arena after Warriors games, and they would blow like all the debris into the aisle with leaf blowers. And I'm on the court doing like a game, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, this is a little loud in here. There's too many leaf blowers in here. And someone's like, how dare you call a Latino employee a leaf blower? How dare you, sir? You should be fired immediately. I'm like, no, literally, we have leaf blowers blowing things. I'm not referring to a person as a leaf blower. I'm talking about actual leaf blowers, like motor-powered leaf blowers. So people are looking for outrage everywhere.
Seriously, go to hell with your offended. Seriously. Seriously, there are people that wake up every day. I somehow, before I lay my head to sleep, will find a way to be offended 7 times.
It's outrage du jour. Anyways, look, I think people use their outrage du jour on Brock Purdy. Again, the 2 bad interceptions, that all happened. We get it. But the reason why you lose to the Lions is because you didn't force a punt. You gave up 40 points, and your kicker left 7 points on the field with 2 missed field goals and the point after touchdown. We'll talk about Jake Moody here, but just real quick for Brock Purdy, just some perspective, right? Because perspective matters, and it seems like too many have none. The most games in 49ers franchise history with 3 or more passing touchdowns in the history of the franchise, Brock is already 4th all time. All time. Most games with 350 passing yards in 49ers history. Brock Purdy is already 3rd all time. The 2 guys that he is constantly behind are Joe Montana and Steve Young, which are literally the measuring sticks of professional quarterbacking excellence. He's nothing worse than just about as good as Montana and Young, and he's 3 years into his career. 3 years into his career. Still not good enough for everyone. He had his 15th career game with 2 or more passing touchdowns and a passer rating of 115 or higher, which is the most such games by any player in the history of professional football in their first 3 seasons. If you can't recognize one of the best starts any career has ever had, and a guy who is only not living up to the reputations of Joe Montana and Steve Young. And if that's not good enough for you, again, maybe football's not for you, and certainly 49ers football is not for you. And I'm not saying you have to go out and buy a Brock Purdy jersey and insist he's your favorite player, but to constantly live in a state of fuck this guy when he is one of the single best things happening to this franchise is unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable to me. So if you don't like Brock Purdy, you know what? I hope he's damaged good and he never plays again. And
don't say that. Don't say that.
No, here's the thing. Like, how do Brock Purdy haters, what needs to happen to totally ruin their seasons? Because you don't deserve anything. You really don't. You really don't. You were cheering.
Well, it's good. And it's the quarterback head coach thing where it's like the quarterback and the head coach always have to take the blame. You know, it's like now the quarterback in this case. First of all, don't compare him to Joe Montana. I mean, it's just Montana is Montana. Montana's the best. I mean, I know Tom Brady has the most, but Joe's the best.
How about this? He's no Colin Kaepernick. He's not as exciting as Colin Kaepernick. He's not the athlete that Colin Kaepernick. Brock Purdy's 5 rushing touchdowns are the most by any quarterback since Colin Kaepernick for the 49ers. Come on. I mean,
we're complaining about a quarterback who completed 77% of his passes, 377 yards and 3 touchdowns, and also had a rushing touchdown and looked pretty damn good most of the night. But those picks are those picks, and you can't throw them. But what are picks? Picks is when you have pressure on the quarterback. Now, I thought the makeshift offensive line, believe it or not, did a decent job. But and this defense is not a great defense that the Lions have. I mean, the Lions, to me, I had 2 takeaways last night. Damn the 49ers for playing Brock Purdy in meaningless time when I told them how stupid it was and how reckless it was in the pregame, and they're still out there in the fourth quarter. So that was one thought. The other thought was, this Detroit team is really exciting on offense, and they're not winning anything this year because they don't have a good enough defense. That defense is not a championship caliber defense. It's just not.
The fact that offensive line handled that defensive front is a serious warning to the Detroit Lions that enjoy your regular season, but in the playoffs, you will be beaten. I believe that now. I think they're going to get beat up front by either.
They don't have enough.
Look, Minnesota should handle them next year. I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of amazing that the Lions played their guys, considering that game meant nothing to them. And next week's game is the single most important game in Lions franchise history. You're either the 1 seed with a week off or you're not. I mean, next week.
I mean, here's the thing. Did it make more sense for the Niners to sit Purdy or for the Lions to sit Goff? You could make the argument Goff, but the thing is, Goff, you want to keep sharp because next week he's got an important game. There's no important game next week for Brock Purdy. There may not, he couldn't play a game. It doesn't sound like next week. We'll find out more details later today. But I don't understand. I mean, I understand it's football and guys sign up for 17 weeks. So it's not like, hey, you know what? Or 17 games. It's not like, hey, everybody comes off the field. But to me, this was a unique circumstance in that you don't really have a way to protect Brock Purdy. And he did take a couple of sacks. He would have taken more if he didn't run for his life. So I just think, okay, you wanted to play him, you played him. You wanted to maybe, because, if you take Brock out, you probably don't get that game out of Pearsall. You probably don't get that game out of Kittle. You probably don't get 34 points, right? And the game wouldn't have been as close, and you would have gotten probably more embarrassed on national TV. But once again, where are the priorities? I had winning this game. Okay, I don't know where you had it, Damon. This was my goals for the night. Goal number 1, don't get Purdy killed. Goal number 2, don't get embarrassed on Monday Night Football. Goal number 3, win the game. That should have been goal number 3. It was goal number 1. And why are you prioritizing winning the game? I know you're a football coach. That's what you do. But your job is to bring the franchise along. How you already are not going to have Ayuk in week 1. Can you imagine if now you're not going to have Purdy? You know what happened last night? Now the 49ers are going to be on really under the gun here. They've already said they're going to extend Brock Purdy. And now, if they don't extend him, they've almost created, they've almost, done medical, or a coaching malpractice. I mean, you're not, if you don't, now you have to give him the contract. And you don't have to give him a massive contract, but you got to give him a contract extension. And what if his elbow situation is so bad that he can't go week 1? Now you're paying more money for guys who cannot play. And that to me is the number one reason that they're 6-10. Joe Buck, who's, rarely gets a great point, but he had an incredible point in the postgame. He's like, they've gotten 6 games out of Ayuk. They've gotten 4 games out of CMC. They've only gotten 10 games out of Trent. They didn't get a full boat of games out of any of their stars for the most part. That's what happens. And it's like, you're going to set yourself up for more of that in 2025. So guess what? If Brock can't go, now suddenly here comes the Kirk Cousins talk. Here comes the Aaron Rodgers talk. Here comes the go get Mac Jones, go get Zach Wilson, go get Daniel Jones, go get Drew Lock. They've just put themselves in a whole new situation at quarterback, because now there's a chance, and we don't know, but there's a chance that Brock Purdy is seriously hurt. And next year is their go year. Like, by the way, we need to say this because it was reported on ESPN. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch will be back. So for those of you who are like, dude, chase those guys out, they're not going anywhere. Jed York told either Kawakami or Lombardi in the SF Standard in the pregame that Shanahan and Lynch, quote, are not going anywhere, emphasizing that the successful coach, general manager tandem will remain in their current roles. He says you can write that for sure. York told the Standard before the game, they're not going anywhere.
Hey, that's great. We told you that 6 weeks ago. You know, we broke that news over 3 months ago. Of course, neither guy is going anywhere. A bad year shouldn't break up what has been a pretty good front office, but the time is officially now ticking on their clock. And the opportunities to get a draft pick wrong are far and few between now. They officially are in their last couple of years of being, you know, in the privileged position to get this right. Because look, there are other guys who can coach, and there are definitely other guys who can pick players. And the way that we've seen Kyle bust out some game plans and his devil-may-care attitude towards player health, it is not perfect. And it is borderline unimpressive, if you ask me. So Kyle is you know, as one of the larger Kyle supporters and believers out there, my faith is being tested. There's no doubt about that. And Kyle's got this ego that I do think is a problem for him. And I do think he needs to be put in check. And I do think that Nick Sorensen is look at it this way, man. If you're going to get better as a defensive coordinator at some point, I should be able to identify what that might be. I don't know where that's going to come from. I'm not impressed. Brandon Staley, what would you say it is you even do here? It's a special teams ridiculous situation. The fact that Kyle asked Jake Moody to kick a 58-yard field goal last night. What? Like, are you watching your own season, Kyle? Are you watching this player? Because if you cannot see a lack of confidence, what are you looking at? You sound just like the Brock Purdy as a noodle arm idiot crowd. Like, what are you even looking at? What are you looking at? How do you ask him to kick a 58-yard field goal? How?
I mean, here's the thing, though. He missed a 41-yard field goal.
And then they asked him to kick a 58-yarder.
Yeah, but I mean, first of all, the big issue is the guy missed a 41-yard field goal. So I'm sorry, Jay. I'm sorry for the people who don't like anybody to be fired, and there's a lot of people out there because, you know, nobody likes this. But Jake Moody, come on, man. I mean, I don't even care if he has an NFL career somewhere else. I know Kyle said, well, I've had a kicker in the past that we cut him, and then a year or two later, he was the highest paid kicker in the league. Well, guess what?
Right.
Do it again. Show us you can do it again, because Jake Moody needs a change of scenery, and Niner fans can't watch this anymore. He's not the reason they lost, but he's part of the reason they lost.
He's part of the reason they lost. And here's the deal. And
missed 2 field goals, they lost by 6.
If Kyle wants to keep on retreating, if he wants to keep on retreating to maybe it's the high ankle sprain, well, then maybe you shouldn't be playing an injured kicker. I mean, if you think there is
Kyle's not saying that.
If you think that was his excuse just a week ago, maybe there's some still lingering effect. Well, you had 2 different off the street kickers perform very well. You shouldn't have asked Moody to come back until he was totally ready. So, you know, there's another player practice evaluation that I think the 49ers are getting wrong. Let's again, look, I don't want to just be nothing but anger, because the good news is you didn't screw up your draft position. The 49ers, they lose to Arizona next week. They're picking 11th. They're going to have the 11th pick in the upcoming NFL draft. That's a good place to be operating from. It's also good to see Ricky Pearsall actually look like a real football player in this game. I mean, we have been rough on Ricky. We gave Ricky all the grace in the world coming back from his incredibly scary incident to the beginning of the year. But at some point, you are now your production as a professional athlete. His production has been subpar, substandard, even on the rookie scale. Last night, he played really well, a career high, 8 catches, 141 yards to go along with a touchdown. Again, most yards he's ever produced, most catches he's ever produced, third most receiving yards by a 49er rookie in a single game in franchise history. Rice, Dave Parks, and Ricky Pearsall are now 1, 2, 3 on that list. Honestly, Larry, I didn't know if he had it in him. I didn't know. I didn't know if he was going to ever really have a game of that level of impact. So that was a good thing to see. And as always, George Kittle is like the most dependable guy in franchise history. One of them. He really is. George Kittle is one of the all-time great 49ers, bar none, hands down, one of the ultimate Niners. He's first team all 49ers franchise history as this team's tight end. He caught all 8 of his targets for 112 yards. He's now over 1,000 on the season, 1,079. Fourth career season with 1,000 or more yards. He's one of 5 tight ends in NFL history with 4 career seasons of 1,000 or more yards. The list is all the elites: Kelsey, Kittle, Tony Gonzalez, Gronk, and Jason Witten. Kittle's also got the third most games with 100 or more receiving yards in franchise history. Rice is 66, T.O. is 25, and Kittle's got 21. So Kittle is the third best wide receiver and tight end. He's the best tight end and the third best wide receiver in franchise history, basically. He's very special. He's everything that you would ever want in a tone setter, in a guy who knows how to make that locker room serious, and a guy who knows how to keep that locker room light by handing out Jimmy Garoppolo beefcake t-shirts and everything he's done. Kittle is one of the ultimate perfect San Francisco 49ers. Salute him. And if he plays another down, Kyle and John Lynch should be fired into the sun.
Kittle is having an amazing year. I'm just looking up his game log here because he's got a thing going this year that's unbelievable. His targets almost match his catches over the last month or so. So last night he was targeted 8 times. He caught 8 balls.
8 catches.
The week before he was targeted 9 times. He caught 8 balls. Then he had a down week where he was targeted 7 times and caught 4. Then the week before he was targeted 6, caught all 6. Then the week before he was targeted twice, caught 1. The next week he was targeted 6 times, caught all 6. I mean, this guy's target, his targets and catches are like really, really impressive. I mean, he's catching virtually everything they're throwing his way.
Yeah,
he was fantastic. Pearsall was fantastic. Pearsall is a good route runner and he's got good hands. The question is, can he? Can he separate? Does he have the ability to separate? And how tough is he? To me, that's the real question, because he's going to operate in the middle of the field. And people are like, oh, he's going to be Julian Edelman. Okay, that's fine. But Julian Edelman's like one of the rare tough guys of all time. And if you don't know that, now you know. So, to me, you're saying that Ricky Pearsall's going to be enormously tough. If he's enormously tough, he's going to have a hell of a career. No question about it. And it was great to see because he's a first-round draft choice, and he'd been outperformed quite a bit by Ladd McConkey and others who were drafted behind him. So it was really imperative for him to have that kind of game. And without Brock Purdy playing, Pearsall doesn't have that game. So that is another argument for the people who say, going against what I was saying, which is sit Brock Purdy, the people that were saying play him. One of the things you can point to is probably Pearsall doesn't have this game. And Brock to Pearsall and getting that combo going is going to be important. Why? Because Ricky was a first-round pick. He ain't going anywhere. And because Brock's your quarterback and he ain't going anywhere. So, the only thing I will say is it's been a disaster year. So if you don't want to, I'm not calling on firing Lynch. I'm not calling for the firing of Shanahan. I'm not calling for the demotion of Brock Purdy. But you're going to have to do something. Somebody's going to have to go. What I would do going forward as far as Brock Purdy in the quarterback room is pay him what you're going to pay him. Obviously, negotiate that out. We'll see what he gets. I think he's going to get $50 million, but if he got 45, that would be better. If he got 40, that would even be better. The less you could pay your quarterback, the better, because that money then gets spread around to the rest of the roster. But let's just say they're going to get that contract done. What do you want to do around him? I want to continue. The one thing I don't like is I think Brock Purdy, is a guy that exists on competition. And I think a big part of why he was so great early was because he had to get noticed and to get field time and to get ahead of Lance and Garoppolo like for good. And he outplayed them for sure. And now those guys are gone. But now you've got Dobbs. Now you've got who was okay, whatever. Now you got Brandon Allen. Now you got Tanner Mordecai. I think you have to have, even though you're going to pay Brock big money, you have to have a real NFL starting quarterback there. It can be an old one, a Joe Flacco and Andy Dalton. It can be a young one, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Davis Mills. I mean, but it has to be an NFL. Drew Lock is a guy that I like, especially after this weekend. I think he would be a nice little backup. They got to have a real guy. They got to have a real backup so that Brock sits there and there's got to be somebody who could take his job if he throws 4 picks in the first 2 games next year, irregardless of the contract.
Yeah,
so
behind Brock, I think you got old man, young man, right? You want one older veteran, your Andy Dalton, Flacco type, like you just said, and then the young guy who can either
Kirk Cousins.
I don't think so. But I just think
Aaron Rodgers.
Definitely not. No.
I mean, there's going to be options out there of older guys that are going to be available. So, take your pick. Again, but maybe
Tanner
backups,
Mordecai,
Carson Wentz. I mean, you got options.
Start Tanner Mordecai.
I think Tanner Mordecai needs to play against Arizona. I don't know if he's going to start
in Arizona and see whether or not that guy is part of that room next year.
I agree.
Yeah, why not? I would have used these 2 weeks because a guy in his first game can have a bad game. So let's see what he looks like 2 weeks in a row to get a little feel for him. But no, Kyle had to leave Brock Purdy out there to get hurt in you're not going to win this game because there's 90 seconds left in it and you need to score 12 points situation. But that's the way Kyle played it.
I mean, I get it, Damon, when he's going. I get it when it's like, hey, the guys in the room want you to go for it because they don't care about draft picks or draft position or tanking. That's not a football thing. It's the players don't think like that at all, right? So I get all that. But that was until you're eliminated. Now you're eliminated. Now, I'll say this. I was up in the press box last night, and I got there real early. And there was a 49er coach up in the press box and he's sitting there getting his drink when I'm getting my drink, and someone's like, "Hey, man, rough year." And he's like, "Yeah, man, I just can't wait until next Monday." So, they want to get this thing over with, man. This has been a tire fire of a season. Like people have lost children. Guys have been shot. I mean, it's been an ugly year for sure. Any way you slice it,
it's the bad date that can't end soon enough. It's just
right.
You got to get out of this date. It's the worst date ever. Let's just wrap it up. Again, Kyle's commitment to some questionable game plans. And the whole okay, so you really want to win now tonight, Kyle. The mantra is win at all costs. This is the Lions game is my personal season Super Bowl. All right. Well, why are you only running the ball 4 times in the second half? When you have a defense that is screaming, if you put us out on this field, we're going to give up another touchdown. Why wouldn't you try to keep the other team's offense on the field and play a little defense with ball control, play a little defense by running the ball, playing a little defense by killing clock? But
how about this? You said fourth quarter? How about first quarter? How about the first quarter? The Niners only had 7 rushing attempts in the first quarter. They came out throwing. Now, I understand the Lions' pass D's not great. They probably had a bunch of guys up on the line of scrimmage, blah, 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 blah.
Hey, touchdown on 3
Protect your quarterback. If you were going to play Brock Purdy, you needed to have a 60. We talked about it yesterday. If you're going to play Brock Purdy, I was totally against it. You needed to be about 60-40 run pass. Well, guess what? The game was a 1-point game at the end of the first quarter. The Niners led 21-13 at the end of the second quarter. It was anybody's game. The 49ers, there was no separation on the scoreboard, Damon, until much later in the game. So it's like, what the heck are they? I mean, this game was a 7-point game in the third quarter. It was 28-21. and to run and you look at the box and go, okay, what was the run pass split? This game was pretty close. It was 18 runs and 40 passes. I mean, once again, this is your plan with your season's done, and you're going to put your quarterback in harm's way 40 times and run it 18 times in a game that means nothing. What are you doing? What are you doing?
When your defense
I can't even make sense of it.
When your defense can't stop anything, why not go out of your way with your offense to keep the other team's offense off the field a little bit? And you do that with a running game. And
a little ball control, a little complimentary football.
I didn't get that. There's another thing, too, that I thought was kind of interesting. This was brought up by Al Sacco. And look, interceptions are bad, kids. I'm not trying to excuse Brock's interceptions. They both came, I think, on throws to Pearsall. They were both airmailed. They weren't good. Full stop. Didn't like them and helped lose the game. But you cannot say my quarterback lost this game when your defense didn't see a punt. Not one. The Lions just scored touchdowns and kicked field goals all night long. That's all they did.
The Niners, by the way, were awesome in the red zone. 5 for 5.
Yeah, how about that?
I want to say, what was the difference between the past games and this game? That right there. Niners were 5 for 5 in the red zone. The Lions were 3 for 4 in the red zone. But the other one that stands out is this game. The one thing you're playing the Detroit
turnovers real quick. Turnover before you change the subject. Al Sacco had this in the last 8 games. The 49ers have committed 13 turnovers and only have 2 takeaways.
Yeah.
We'll do the math for you. That's minus 11. And while they're playing minus 11 turnover football, they've gone 2-6. Yeah. And that's where the season fell apart.
I mean, if I said to you yesterday, hey, Damon, they're playing the Lions. What's a good game plan? You would say, man, the Lions, defensively, they're really depleted, but offensively, man, they can hang 50 on you. And they can score fast, and no lead is safe against this team. Their offense is cooking. They got premier offensive line. Goff's having his career year, and he's got weapons galore. Okay. Well, how do you beat a team like that? Well, the one thing you got to make sure, win, lose, or draw, you have to dominate the time of possession and keep them on the field, keep their offense on the sideline. Time of possession, 35 minutes for the Lions, 25 minutes for the Niners. So, I mean, what the heck? What kind of a game plan is that where you lose the time of possession by 10 minutes in a game where it didn't mean a whole lot and didn't mean anything to you, and you should just run the ball? Plus, between Garendo, Abanaconda, the one thing you do have is you got a bunch of running backs in that room. You could have activated an extra running back and run the shit out of it. And instead, no. The Lions run 33 times, and the Niners ran 18 times. And you say, well, maybe they weren't running it well. No, they were running it well. 4.2 a carry.
Yeah.
Debo was going for 5.5 yards a carry on his runs. I mean, Garendo had 9 carries for 34 yards. It's just under 4 a carry. His yards per carry are always going to be low unless he really busts one, because he's not a pure running back per se. But I mean, God, it was just a frustrating game. I had to bet the Lions because I'm like, you know what? Jahmyr Gibbs is going to do to the Niners what Devin Achane did to them last week. And sure enough, Gibbs 46 yards receiving on 4 receptions and 117 on 18 carries, 6.5 a pop. He went for 150. He had a huge day, and the Lions are 14-2, and the Niners are 6-10, and hopefully on their way to 6-11. I don't think it really matters, but since this thing's been a bad year, why make it look any better than it is? It's a 6-win team. It's a 6-win team.
There's no putting window dressing on this. There's no doubt this is a bad football team.
But they have reached the NFC Championship game 4 times and 2 Super Bowl appearances in 8 seasons since they hired Lynch and Shanahan. So for those of you going, they got to get rid of Lynch, they got to get rid of Shanahan. Okay, these guys are not perfect. John Lynch has made a lot of mistakes for sure. especially at the top of the draft. And Shanahan has made a lot of in-game mistakes for sure. But the bottom line is kind of the bottom line. And 4 NFC championship games and 2 Super Bowl appearances in 8 seasons is a pretty damn good record. This was their first losing season since 2020. Now, why was I so passionate about sitting Brock Purdy last night? Because it's clear to me, and it should be clear to John and to Kyle and to all of you, that it's next year or they are under the gun. Like, they're not going anywhere, but if this season repeats itself next year, they're gone.
Right. Well,
they're going to go from not going anywhere to gone in 1 year.
The Super Bowl window, it's closed. The Super Bowl window is closed. Now, they might reopen one quickly here, but to me, what we've seen is now over. This is a line in the sand between, the close but not good enough to win it all start to Kyle's career, and then this year, and shit needs to start changing, the following year. They need to be north of 10 wins. They're going to have a last place schedule to negotiate. They will be set up with an opportunity to make hay while the sun is shining on a last place schedule that should benefit them. Hopefully they won't have all of this rest disparity working against them, and it's a better year, and they don't have a choppy off season, and they do have a good draft class. Again, they can keep a pretty good thing on the tracks here with just a few good decisions along the way. They're not far away from being a team that matters again.
Well, one thing, Damon, that they have to do, and, they have to start making everybody uncomfortable. And if you they like to keep everybody comfortable, right? That's why, it's like, we don't want to challenge anybody. We want everybody to be comfortable. But here's the bottom line. John Lynch has missed on 20 picks in the first 3 rounds. He needs to be uncomfortable. You need to have another draft consultant there to help out, to be another voice in the room, because that's too many misses. He needs to be uncomfortable. Kyle Shanahan probably needs to bring in an offensive coordinator, or at least some in-game guru who can help him manage clock and situations and take some stuff off his plate. He needs to be uncomfortable. There's no question in my mind that Brock Purdy needs to be uncomfortable. Stop putting Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs type quarterbacks around him. Get somebody in that room that can absolutely take the job away from him and make him uncomfortable. Same thing with that offensive line. My God, Chris Forster told us 5 times this year how great Jake Brendel was.
He is not.
Take Jake Brendel away from him because he no longer has objective. He's lost his objectivity, so he needs to be made uncomfortable. And the guy who really needs to be made uncomfortable is Nick Sorensen, who is probably uncomfortable this year a little bit with Brandon Staley, but he probably needs to be either replaced or demoted, or there needs to be more defensive personnel, because this coverall, like Mike Singletary had this stupid freaking coverall because he didn't have the answers at the presser. He'd be like, I got to watch the film.
Got to watch the tape.
I got to watch the film. Why? You don't know what you're watching. And then Sorensen lately has been like, hey, just a communication breakdown. Just a communication breakdown. Well, here's a communication break. Here's a communication that's going to get through. Either get it fucking going or fucking hit the bricks.
Right. You know where I saw communication.
That was communicated from me to you. Either get it fucking going and get some better players and a better fucking scheme, or get somebody else. Because last night wasn't good enough. If this defense hides behind that bogus yard stat, and while ignoring how horrible they've been in situational defense, and guess what situational defense highlights? Coaching.
Look,
if you're bad in situational defense, it means you're probably poorly coached.
Renardo Green made a great play early in the game to break up a touchdown, and then he got beat in the corner by Amon-Ra St. Brown for that touchdown. And I thought that there was a true communication breakdown right there. Looked like the coverage split and broke, and
it was Renardo Green, dude. When you walk to the line of scrimmage, you have to say to yourself, down and distance. And guess what? You should never have to say that on the goal line. What are you defending 4 yards in the end zone? Guess what? You get 7 points if you get a touchdown. It doesn't matter if you score the touchdown 5 yards deep in the end zone. You don't get 10 points if it's a touchdown 5 yards into the end zone. So what are you doing 4 yards into the end zone, allowing a catch at the goal line and let the guy? I mean, what would you say you're doing there? I mean, he either lost focus, he lost concentration, he doesn't know what he's doing. I don't know what the hell happened there. That was pitch and catch, and it was way, way too easy. And that's an embarrassment. When you're watching that on the film, what exactly are you saying as a player? I didn't know the end zone mattered.
Larry, we got a huge audience in here right now on my channel and on yours as well. Welcome, everyone. Have a great New Year's Eve tonight. It is great to have you here. Hit like and subscribe to both of these channels. We really appreciate you coming on back. We were talking about making everyone uncomfortable. You will be very, very comfortable if you head on down to Sam's Chowder House. And we thank Paul and Julie Shankman for sponsoring this show. And if you want to be comfy and eat great, go get that lobster roll down in Half Moon Bay. The paella, the cioppino, it is all fantastic. And Larry, we've been giving out lobster rolls. Kittle has had most of them this year. I'm giving last night's lobster roll to Ricky Pearsall. I was hoping we'd give him one this year. I didn't think for a minute we would, but he, I think, officially earned his first lobster roll with that performance. A rare silver lining to an otherwise cloudy season. A good game out of Ricky Pearsall. Happy that we saw it.
I'm going to give a couple one. First of all, there were a lot of positives in this game. Even though the Niners lost, they gave up 40. The Lions never punted. But a couple guys that really stand out. One, Nick Bosa probably concussed early in the game. 8 tackles, 5 solo, 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. The Niners had 4 hits on the quarterback. Nick Bosa had all 4 hits on the quarterback. The Niners don't have a good D-line. They have Nick Bosa. The Niners don't have good linebackers. They've got Fred Warner. You see what I'm saying? The Niners used to have a great defensive line. Now they have Nick Bosa. They used to have a great linebacking core. Now they have Fred Warner. It's like, the eroding of the roster. For a guy who's a personnel guy at his heart, man, it hurts me to see the 49ers backslide personnel-wise, and that's exactly what's happened. But Nick Bosa came to play last night, and, man, I had to credit him in the postgame. I'm like, man, you were fine. You were leading the way up front because he absolutely was fantastic in this game.
Yep.
I love the way he played the run. I love the way the motor. This guy was dialed in all night. He's always been a great player. I think he became a leader, a true leader last night. Your team sucks right now. Your defense is garbage. Your coordinator's lost, and you're out there balling. And, man, I was so impressed by him. I mean,
that friendly fire stinger that he took early in the game would have absolutely had been enough for him to just say, I think I'm good for the rest of the night here. Right. I'm going to go into this blue tent and I'm not coming out with my helmet. And that's, no one's going to say I'm jaking it. Everyone just saw I got a little banged up right there. It would have been real easy for him to have white flagged it, and he didn't. So cheers to that. So
that's one. But the other one, and sometimes one play is enough to, really give you the lobster roll of the week. Malik Mustafa ran 50 yards to get Jahmyr Gibbs. It was one of those east-west things, right? And literally Gibbs is on the Lions sideline headed that way, and you've got Mustafa, who's no more than 10 feet from the Niners sideline, and he sees Gibbs and beelined across the field, the fastest I have seen a 49er run all year. That was awesome. It was amazing. He just beelined all the way across the field at some crazy pace and got him down on a solo tackle. And it's like, dude, Malik Mustafa, dude, that was an amazing effort.
Young man.
That is the kind of play in week 17 that, if I was Kyle Shanahan, this season has been a fucking disaster. Absolute disaster. But you know what I would do if I was Kyle Shanahan? I would tell the internal office people, just take that Malik Mustafa hustle play and just play it on a loop for this entire freaking off season.
Right. Have it in the weight room.
Have that in the weight room, have that in the meeting room, have that in the lobby. No more highlights of Kittle and Juice and Purdy and the rest of the team. Just Malik Mustafa, week 17, dead run, 50 yards. I'm going to make the play, because that to me was a defining culture kind of a play. And that's a special person, special football player. He probably screwed up. I have to talk to him about it. I haven't watched the All-22 yet, so I don't know definitively why Gibbs got that wide open. And maybe it was Mustafa Damon busting his ass because maybe he got burned. Maybe he ran left and he thought he was supposed to run right. But when he saw that he was 30, 40, 50 yards away from the guy and just dead sprint, I was like, wow. And even Bosa was like, man, I was going towards it and he just ran right by me. I was like, yeah, I mean, it was something else to watch. And when they watch it on film, it's an amazing, you don't see that. I mean, it was like one of those blindside, movie highlights. It was like a ridiculous highlight. So Malik Mustafa, just for the desire in a nothing meaningless game. And I thought D. Winters, too. D. Winters, my God. 8 tackles, 3 solo, flying all over the place. Loved what I saw towards the end of the year from D. Winters.
Well, I'll tell you, it's going to be just don't get anybody hurt. Don't even bother playing a single guy that matters in week 1 next year, week 17 or 18, in Arizona. They'll be wrapping up with the Cardinals in Arizona. 1:25 next Sunday is the kickoff time attached to that. But through 17 weeks of football, Larry, through 17 weeks of football in this league, we still have the AFC North, the NFC North, and the NFC South up for grabs. So we will have an interesting final week. No bigger game between Lions and Vikings to decide who gets a bye, who's a 1 seed. There's also still a spot open in the AFC playoffs. Neither the Broncos, the Dolphins, or Bengals are going to get that. And if Joe Burrow gets the Bengals back into it, there's going to be a drumbeat for his MVP campaign getting even louder. So it will be a very interesting final week, but unfortunately, all interest to the 49ers now starts pointing towards their offseason and getting back to being a proper 49er team, because this has just been an improper season for so many different frustrating reasons. Some controllable, many controllable, a few non-controllable. The Niners need to get control of this shit, though, because this year, when it's all said and done, it's unacceptable. For a Super Bowl team to have retreated like this, to have prioritized the games that don't matter at the end of the year over the games that did matter at the beginning of the year, with slow negotiations in your off season and just a slow kind of laissez-faire approach to special teams disasters, which were just brushed away like just a mosquito, don't worry about it. No, you got malaria. You got malaria from that mosquito.
To me, the theme's got to be challenge yourself going forward. Every guy in the room. I mean, and competition. What is America built on? America's built on competition. What's the solution to almost every issue in business? Up the competition. And in pro sports, competition's, absolutely central focus of the whole thing. So make Shanahan uncomfortable. Make, Brock Purdy uncomfortable. Get more talent in the room. Maybe go for some guys on defense that are, it's kind of a nice room. I'd like a couple guys on that defensive front that were kind of glass cutters. You know what I mean? The kind of guys that are just, they show up and they're pretty nasty. We need a couple more Dre Greenlaw type personalities on that defensive side of the ball. Mustafa was a great ad. They need a few more Mustafas. They just have to put together another 2025 draft that rivals what they did in 2024. And they're going to need an incredible personnel offseason. This fall from grace, in my opinion, is about players. And if they're going to get back on top, it's also going to be about players. Let's hit the supers, because I know Damon's got to jump. Matt's a new member. Thank you, Matt. Matt also drops a $10 here. He says $35 million for our wide receiver room next year for a declining Debo, BA, who may never be the same, a 4-7 wide receiver in JJ, Ricky, who only showed up against a decimated defense, and Cowing, who's done nothing. Day 2 wide receiver pick. Well, I'll say this. I hear what you're saying. I think this might be the year to hit wide receiver in free agency.
Yes.
There's Rondale Moore, there's Tutu Atwell, there's McCole Hardman. They all run in the 4.3s. If you're going for a wide receiver, though, there's a couple in this draft that I really like. One of them,
I don't like any. How about this? There should not be a single rookie assigned to play offense next year who's not a rookie offensive lineman. Like, go get yourself someone that Kyle's going to want to play week one. Go get someone who Kyle doesn't hate instantly because he picked him as a free agent. Do that.
Well, I mean, first of all, maybe just let Kyle coach the team and don't worry about, the other aspects of it. I mean, I don't know that he needs to be in the room for every discussion about every personnel decision, because I don't think that's his strength. I think it's pretty clear at this point that that's kind of not his strength. So, but as far as receivers go, we'll have lots of time to break it all down. The Cowings teammate at Arizona, Tedoroa McMillan, awesome player, 6'4", 210. Luther Burden, the third from Missouri, incredible player, speedster who's going to make lots of plays. And then the third guy is Trey Harris from Ole Miss, 6'2", 210, blue chip type receiver. He'll be on the board for the Niners. I can't see them going receiver in the first round, but they probably could use one in the later rounds. But they got to have somebody who can run, because you've got your possession guy, JJ. You got another possession guy in Pearsall. You need more speed at wide receiver.
Let me tell you, Deebo Samuel, you're in charge of kick returns and punt returns, and then we'll figure out what you can still do for this team offensively. But you're a $28 million special teams gadget guy, and I think you can actually do the Niners well in that regard. You're overpaid, but that's the role you need to play. You're not X, you're not Y, you're not really Z, and you're certainly not a running back. So what are you? We'll figure it out. But Deebo, special teams next year.
Ham says you're correct. Purdy shouldn't have played, but I can't imagine Lynch wouldn't be getting a phone call from Goodell if so transparent about it with no injury. They sat Trent. They sat Trent. You can sit who you want to sit. And even if you played him, if you want to play him, start him, play him a half. He had a great half, but no, they had to risk it and put him out there in harm's way, and he got hurt. Julio, new member. Way to go, Julio. Mike Baker's in the house. First, Happy New Year to both D. Bruce and Larry and your awesome families. Next, you were both right about not playing Brock, so he won't get injured. Yeah, well, unfortunately. Rita Thomas's 49er update. Kicker Ray Wershing is tanned, fit, and ready.
Go get Ray.
Awesome. X-Man, I don't think I'd rather have Ray Ratto than Ray Wershing at this point. X-Man 2 says this team just needs rest mentally and physically, especially for the veterans that lost the previous Super Bowl. There's no question. It starts to, all these games, all these extra games, it starts to pile up. HT says you can't blame the defense. We were still in the game until the interception.
I mean, I don't know. When you don't force
that's ridiculous.
Punt, I can blame plenty of defense. There's a lot of blame to go around. You gave up 40 and you didn't force a single punt. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the interceptions cost you the game. Yes, Brock needs to be better. Yes, he needs to take full responsibility and has for those interceptions. Nobody's taking anything off of Brock. Let's just say this: as the old guy Ralph Barbieri used to say, two things can be equally true.
Two things can be equally true.
I'm going vis-a-vis my Miata. Tommy Huxley, Wonder Bread Sorensen has to go. Fix the run D in the first round. I agree. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant. I'd go after some defensive tackles. Yeah. Dallas Kale says both defenses were terrible last night. One kicker missed 2 field goals and an extra point. One quarterback threw 2 bad picks late in the game. That was the difference. You know what? That's totally spot on.
Pretty much.
Casey says this Purdy discussion is mind-numbing. Purdy isn't the problem. Defense and special teams are, not to mention Shanahan's stubborn loyalty to both. Sorensen and Schneider should both be canned. I agree. I hate to say it. I hate to call for people's jobs, but there has to be accountability.
What's the argument to bring them back? What would you're running the Nick Sorensen needs to come back arbitration case.
Here's the argument.
Evidence is what?
The argument is this. They were third in the NFL in yards. Bosa and Warner and the leaders on the defense want him. They want to keep their defensive line coach and defensive front, so they want defensive meeting room continuity. I'll say this. I do remember things, maybe better than some. I know lots of people don't remember this, but there was a time when Robert Saleh was absolutely the Niner fans' favorite whipping boy. They hated Robert Saleh. And then they drafted Nick Bosa. And then suddenly they liked Robert Saleh. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is offensive football is a lot about, your play design and Shanahan and Ben Johnson and what kinds of plays you design. Defensive football, it's pretty much about not the X's and O's. I mean, it's pretty much about the guys. And you got to have the dudes. And if you don't have the dudes, and they don't, as I said, you don't have a great D-line. You have Nick Bosa. You don't have great linebackers. You have Fred Warner and a returning from injury Dre Greenlaw. You know what I'm saying? You go build a great linebacking core. Go build a great defensive line. If I ran the 49ers, I would of my first 6 picks, 5 of them would be in my defensive front 7. 5 of them, because that's how bad your defense has become. It needs that kind of injection of talent. You need new defensive tackles. You need another big-time defensive end. You need a couple really, really fast linebackers, and you need a free safety, and you probably need a big-time number 1 type corner. You don't have that either.
This is a franchise that has invested a lot of draft picks along that defensive line and a lot of free agent choices. They're just picking the wrong guys and making the wrong choices. They got to get back to hitting the choices. Look, the amount of money that you're going to pay anybody doesn't matter if they go out and they play well. The amount of money you pay to guys who don't play well is where your cap gets sunk.
Yeah. Or hurt. That's the thing. If you're also, the injuries have hurt, but the injuries aren't an excuse, because if you're Brad Holmes and you did an amazing job establishing depth, you have more injuries than the Niners and you don't even feel it. Fuji Simeon says, congrats on 27,000 subs, Damon. Did you get 27,000 today?
Thank you. We got there in the last 24 hours. Yeah, where are we sitting right now? 27,000, 27,076. Let's get to 27.1 before the end of the show here. Go on, lean in.
You're comfortably ahead of Dan Coach Emilio, who I believe is, right around maybe, I don't know, actually 5,000, 8,000. But good for Danny too. Danny's doing his thing. Old Fogey. Backup quarterback might secretly be the best gig in all of sports. Just because a lot of us don't want to pay him starter money doesn't mean we hate Brock. Well, but if you don't want to pay him starter money, why? I mean, the Eagles are paying Hurts. The Dolphins are paying Tua. I get it. It's a lot of money, but that's what quarterbacks make in the NFL.
Right.
That's what I would say.
Look, and Brock is not a backup quarterback. There's nothing about Brock's resume that suggests he is miscast as a starting NFL quarterback.
He'd be the greatest backup quarterback of all time. Ray Rogers says 49ers lost for a good 10 reasons. I like Purdy, but losing faith in his ability to not lose a game. Kyle needs to change. For the love of God, bring a balanced attack. Need a great draft.
Cannot believe how much he abandoned that run last night. It's like, what are you doing, man?
He's a happy guy. You know what? Go look at this game, the Ravens game on Christmas, Super Bowl 58, Super Bowl 54, and the Falcons game against the Patriots. Take those 5 games and go look how many runs, how many passes, and what you're going to find is in Kyle Shanahan's, and then take that Ram game as well against Stafford in LA in the NFC title game. Take all those games and look at the run pass split. It's like 35% run. It's like over 60% pass.
Well, I think a few years ago, Kyle was 28-0 when he ran the ball more than 40 times or so. It was like a really big number like that. Why do I have to watch that? Why can't Kyle fucking watch that and figure it out? It's not me. I'm not the coach. I'm not the one who keeps on making this mistake, and the biggest games of my reputation hinges on the outcome of this game. Kyle loses every big game he steps into. It's unfair, but it's true. It really does. So maybe you do what works for you in the other not so big games, and you don't get lost in the moment. Kyle seems to suffocate in too many moments.
Well, you know what I think he is? He's got to be the nicest goddamn football coach I've ever met. Stop being so fucking nice. Seriously. Throw your weight around a little bit. Read the riot act of Schneider. Fire his ass. Go get somebody else. If you don't like what you're getting out of your defense, then go in there and let them know about it. He's very nice to everybody. He doesn't want to upset anybody. Football's about competition. Get more competition. I want more quarterbacks. I want more receivers. I want more running backs. I want more competition, not less. I want more coaches feeling uncomfortable.
Look, and what's really odd,
remarkably comfortable. Think about it, Jamin. They're bad this year. They were the Super Bowl favorite. They're going to win 6 games. It's a colossal clusterfuck of a season. And yet Jed's like, hey, man, Kyle ain't going anywhere. John ain't going anywhere. It's like Kyle's looking at us going, hey, man, Sorensen ain't going anywhere. Purdy ain't going anywhere. Forrester ain't going anywhere. We love our special teams coach. Guess what? It all can't be fucking awesome because you're 6 wins after being predicted to win the Super Bowl. So let's get a little tougher. Let's raise our standard. Let's fire some people. Let's try to upgrade our situation. Let's start there instead of run it all back. I mean, you're not the Chiefs with 3 rings.
Well,
why are you running it back? You're not good enough. You haven't been good enough yet. And you're running it back like you've been plenty good enough. The 94 49ers could run it back. You cannot run it back.
So the thing about Shanahan is, it is time to get some new blood in here. And then when you get the new blood in here, don't go about grinding that new blood down to a nub. I mean, his dad did this too. He would take a player and literally ruin that player. Just overuse him. I mean, Robert Griffin in his final game, like his knee was dangling by a thread and they got him in shotgun. They're asking him to do quarterback draws. Like everything screamed, get this guy off the field. He's hurt. But they just ask him to do, ridiculous things for an injured player. And I think that he ground the shit out of Christian McCaffrey. He is going to grind the shit out of, Jordan Mason, the overuse there. I
don't know about that because he doesn't hurt. To me, he doesn't run enough. I hear what you're saying though. He used McCaffrey too much. And here's the thing. In the past years, they didn't do this. In the past years, he's had Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Elijah Mitchell. He spread the ball around. But with McCaffrey, he loves him so much that he just used him. I don't know. I don't know what to say because he likes
the toy so much he breaks it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like Ozzy, I told you not to do that. You're going to break it if you keep on doing that. But he loves it so much. He went out and he broke it. And
BFC. Let's hit the rest of these. BFC Sun, if we lose next week, we keep the 11th pick. If we win, we drop to 13 or 14. I hope we lose. I don't want to pick behind Arizona the whole draft. Strength of schedule is stupid. Rob Ayman says quarterback 2 just got much more important. Absolutely. In case Brock's injury is more severe than we think, maybe Kirk Cousins or a Russell Wilson type deal as insurance, or on a Russell Wilson type deal as insurance. I would say this, unless they get full clearance on Brock Purdy, I almost kind of feel like Kirk Cousins is almost likely. And I will say this, though. If Kirk Cousins was at the right price and was at the right point in his career, he might be perfect. Why? Did you see the way he took Michael Penix under his wing at every timeout? Did you see how he consulted with him? That's what a pro does. Kirk Cousins might have flaws as a player, but he has no flaws as a guy. He's a hell of a guy.
Yeah,
and he would be a good guy for Brock. I mean, he absolutely would. Imagine it this way. If you had Kirk Cousins in a situation like yesterday where Brock throws a couple picks, you could go to Kirk Cousins. You could pull
Kirk Cousins threw so many bad picks this year, dude.
He had a bad year.
8 interceptions in a row in between touchdowns at one point. I mean, here's the thing.
That's why you could get him for nothing.
Good for Brock Purdy because Kyle would immediately start blowing Kirk Cousins every single second that he got. I mean, it would just happen.
It would be good for the Niners. It would be good for Brock Purdy to have somebody there because, Damon, after a while you start to know these people. And I feel like I know Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is a guy that needs to be challenged at all times. He threw a lot of picks at Iowa State. He has to feel the pressure of somebody else there. Yeah. And I think if you had a Cousins,
I do got to get going. I got to get
going. Fuji Simeon says, what are your thoughts on the NFL adopt draft lottery system like the NBA, MLB to determine the draft order for non-playoff teams rather than solely worst record? I don't like it. No. I think there's symmetry in the worst team gets the best record. I think it's the way it needs to be done. I think it's the one fair element that I think makes a lot of sense. Dale says, Larry, your Purdy takes are so damn confusing depending on who you're talking to on the show. He's a franchise quarterback. He could be Hall of Fame. You don't know. The entire offensive scheme is different this year too. My Purdy takes are not confusing. My Purdy takes are very consistent. I said he was a player a year and a half before he actually became the Niner quarterback. I still believe he's a player. Is he? I've never said he's a Hall of Famer ever. And I don't think he's a top tier quarterback. I think he's a solid second tier quarterback who is plenty good enough to win with, but you're not going to win solely because of him. But if you surround him with good enough talent, there's no doubt in my mind that Brock Purdy will wear Super Bowl rings. And I think eventually it's going to happen. But he's not going to carry. He's not Josh Allen. He can't just be like, hey, you know what? It's 3rd and 20. Drop me back to pass and I'll pull something out of my ass. He's not one of those 4 or 5 truly elite guys. So if you can find a truly elite guy, say goodbye to Brock Purdy. That's how I feel. But without a truly elite guy, stay with Brock Purdy. And I agree with Damon. A young guy and an old guy. So like maybe the perfect quarterback room next year might be Brock, Tanner Mordecai, Riley Leonard.
10 minutes here. We can't vamp on each super chat. I really do have to go, Larry. My kid, I got to bring my kid to the Discovery Museum.
Take off. I'll just do the rest. Go ahead.
Well, then we don't get our special finish.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm trying to serve all these masters here. KR says, anyone notice Bosa wearing a Grateful Dead t-shirt and a magic mushroom snapback at the post-game podium? Put his laid-back dude in a new light. Yeah, maybe he's a Grateful Dead guy. Maybe he's a Jerry Garcia fan. Rob Amon, Kyle's stubbornness is why an OC is one of my stipulations going into 2025. Lynch can stay, but they need to bring in Dorsey as a draft czar. That's John Dorsey, not Ken. San Diego or SD 49er, Kyle deserves hard knocks this offseason. Oh, wow. I'd love to see it, but I know it'd make him absolutely sick.
Rob Amon. It might expose some shit. Let's do it.
Well, you know what? I think isn't their secret sauce has been that they have made the playoffs.
You can't.
I think if you make the playoffs, you don't have to be on it. But if you don't make the playoffs, I think you're in harm's way. So they might be forced into it. Well, wouldn't that be awesome? Rob Amon says Sorensen is a Shanny puppet, wide 9 defensive coordinator. Barry Ford says I'm not seeing any outcry from the media, both in San Francisco and nationally, about Kyle's decision to keep Brock in a meaningless game that led to injury. Yeah, nobody seems to have a problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, we do, and we
I do.
We didn't have a problem with it before the game even kicked off. This isn't second guessing. We first guessed.
Fuji Simeon Moody also missed an extra point too. I know I was taping a video at that point. Unbelievable, really. That to me is when I saw him miss the extra point, I said he's gone. He's gone because now it's mental. You're squirrely. It's time to go. Bobby says this segment was phenomenal. I couldn't agree more with you, Larry and Damon. You said everything I was saying yesterday. Keep up the good work, guys. Definitely would love to meet you guys in person. Bobby, there will be no meeting. No, I'm just kidding. Bobby, thanks for supporting the channel. We appreciate you, brother. Happy New Year to you and your family. Fuji Simeon, Lions have Balky to thank for Aiden Hutchinson. Trent chose not to take Aiden first overall in the draft. I'd rather have Trayvon Walker, Damon. I don't like this Hutchinson kid. Something tells old Trent Baalke that Trayvon Walker is really the superior of the two guys.
Had Aiden had that torn ACL at the time of the draft, I would have taken him. It's too bad he tore his ACL so late in his career. He could have been a Jaguar.
Baalke, a 49er draft consultant? Yeah, you will put him at John Muir Hospital, and he can find out who comes in for ACL surgery. Rob Amon says, I better hear the words Moody cut today. Oh, I know. It's so bad. Fuji Simeon, 49er fans this offseason will be watching UFL games looking for a kicker. Ha. Happy New Year to you, Damon. Are your boys going to try to stay up till midnight tonight? Will you let them stay up till midnight?
We're going to pull the 9 p.m. East Coast. We'll watch the ball drop live. The West Coast New Year's Eve is so anticlimactic because the damn thing happened 3 hours ago. So we'll
Whose idea was this?
Huh?
Whose idea was the 9 p.m.? That sounds like a Jillian. idea.
Oh, no, this is just every parent in California has to be feeling this way, right? You watch that East Coast 9 p.m. feed. It's midnight. You made it, kids. Good night. Go to bed.
But where do you watch it?
Living room.
Where is it? Where is it? Where do you find it? Online, you mean?
What, you like Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve? It's right on TV.
No, but I mean, don't they usually do the drop on tape delay on the West Coast?
Well, yeah, if some affiliate, but yeah, I got satellite TV, so I can pick up an East Coast feed. I mean,
that's what I was asking. Where are you getting?
Yeah.
McCodered 05. They need more talent, but this defense is a vanilla scheme compared to the Seahawks, Vikings, Chiefs. The way they disguise their coverages and put several players on the line to confuse the O-line and quarterback. I think there's some truth in that. We don't have enough time to get into that, but we will in a future live stream for sure. Showtime 2118. Jeff Garcia went to 3 straight Pro Bowls. Brock is on a much better team. He's not the third best in franchise history. I think he's better than Jeff Garcia.
I think Brock Purdy today is the third best quarterback in 49ers franchise history. You want to throw a little John Brody at me? I guess we could talk about that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not here to say Jeff Garcia wasn't good. He was really good, but I think Brock has already passed Garcia in so many statistics, and he's played 2 fewer seasons in a Niner uniform than Jeff Garcia did. So
I mean, we all saw them both, but I don't know. I want to give respect to Garcia. I do respect Garcia a ton, but I think Purdy's better. Matt Sanders says last night is exactly why 13 needed to start. Okay, there you go. He started. Hope it went well for you. Brock Purdy isn't the problem, but he also isn't the solution. Oh, sounds like a hallmark. ST 49er. Kyle deserves hard knocks this offseason.
He does. He did. They played themselves into it. Fuck them. Get them. I hope they get it. That would be amazing. Never have another year like this again, Kyle.
It'd be the worst show of all time. It'd be the worst since the Raiders did it because the Niners would not play along. Fuji Simeon Moody lost me a bet because he misses Larry. Larry sung the horrible SI fight song. Why SI Wildcats should be called SI Stray Cats. Oh, come on now. Oh, red and blue will fight for you.
Oh, God.
Old Fogey, Debo, CMC, Juszczyk, almost $50 million of running backs. You can't pay Brock with his limitations and these contracts on the roster. You are going to pay Brock, and you're going to get rid of these guys. Juszczyk, gone. Debo, at that price point, should not be here. And there's going to be a lot of other guys. Brendel, Banks, gone. Mooney, gone. Bay Area Ballers in the house. He said, should every quarterback not in playoff contention sit out? There's nothing to be gained by playing. May, Caleb, Bryce Young should all be sitting. No, that's not what we're saying. But here's the thing. If you're playing them behind a horrible 3/5 of your line, I mean, it's like anything else. You're about to give this guy franchise money. You're about to make this guy your franchise quarterback. You're already not going to have Brandon Ayuk. The one thing you can't do at the end of 2024 is lose 2025. That was potentially what happened last night. I hope you guys realize that.
Those 3 guys, they might have the job, but they're not entrenched in it the way that Brock is. They're still figuring out all of those guys as well. Brock is your week 1 starter next week for sure, or in week 1 next season for sure. And who will be in that quarterback room around him are guys that you could try to identify right now, starting with Tanner Mordecai. I would
and also, Tanner
Mordecai can play.
And you took 3 of the rawest players that need field time, and you're saying, should they be sitting? No, those guys all need to play. Those guys, a lot of those guys left school early. A lot of those guys need more seasoning. They're really, really young. Brock's a lot more advanced than those guys. Showtime says, Larry, ready to walk back your Pearsall comments? No, not at all. I said Pearsall is a bust until he proves otherwise.
Yeah,
last night was the beginning of proving otherwise. So no, I mean, I said he's a bust until you don't know. There is no scholarship here. I don't owe, just because the Niners took the guy in the first round doesn't mean I owe him some debt of gratitude or owe him to believe in him. I said it on draft day. I'll say it again. Ricky Pearsall's greatness in the NFL will be tied to how tough is Ricky Pearsall, because he's going to operate in the middle of the room. He's going to take a lot of hits. If he's super tough, he's going to be good. If he's not super tough, he's not going to be that good. He had a good night last night for sure, and I'm rooting for him. He's a good kid. L. Kurtz, any update on Purdy's elbow? Not yet. Brandon V. Dobbs' last 50 seconds was more than Allen's whole Green Bay game. Yeah, Dobbs, maybe Dobbs is going to start against Arizona. I'll say it right now. Dobbs is going to be your starter against Arizona, and I think he plays the first half, and maybe the third quarter. And if the game gets out of hand, it's Tanner Mordecai maybe at the end. That would be
They
my
wouldn't
guess.
even dress Tanner Mordecai. Watch.
I know. Jake Brendel or Drake Nugent was up yesterday. Did he play? I don't know. Did Drake Nugent? Did anybody know? I didn't see the TV copy. Did Drake Nugent play at all? Anybody?
I don't think so. I don't think Nugent played, and I still haven't seen Jacob Cowing run a play from scrimmage.
Right. And also we got to see more from Izzy Abanacondo next week because Izzy can play. I don't know why they're burying him, but it's time for him to play. Let him play. Let him find out what you got. I'm telling you, the guy's a player. And when you see him play, you're going to be like, whoa, this guy's freaking good. All right, that does it for us. I just want to say, Larry? What's that?
Back on Friday, 9 a.m.
Back on Friday, 9 a.m. Also, there's a rumor out that the Warriors could be on the verge of a Zion Williamson trade. I like that idea, Damon, because Zion Williamson in his contract has stipulations about weight. And this guy was really, really good, like as recently as a year ago. He was really, really good in that play-in thing. He had 40 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists and then left in the fourth quarter with a hamstring injury in the play-in tournament game between the Pelicans and the Lakers. And now here we are. The Pelicans are tanking. The Warriors have $40 million in expiring contracts on their books and 3 first-round draft picks they could use in a trade. I say get Zion Williamson to the Bay. Put him next to Steph. That would make the Warriors way more interesting. What do you think?
It would make them interesting. Unfortunately, Zion will hurt himself on the flight to the Bay and have to miss his first 10 games in a Warriors uniform. So as excited as I might be about it, I'm also going to tell you, don't do it. That guy is a pile of damaged goods and lack of self-discipline. I don't think I would get into business with.
Fair enough. L. Kurtz, is you guys watching the college football playoffs to scout? I am. You know me. I'm all over it. Michigan got up early on Alabama. Louisville and Washington goes next. South Carolina, Illinois is going to be really good. LSU. Go if you're a Niner fan. I would suggest you, if you can watch one game today, watch LSU. LSU's got Campbell and Jones, the 2 tackles, are both first-round picks. The Niners probably wind up with one of those 2 guys, I would imagine, if they go tackle in round 1. LSU's also got Harold Perkins and some other guys. So check out LSU against Baylor, and then Penn State is going to beat the crap out of Boise State.
Hey, thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks for everyone for watching. Like and subscribe, and may all your days be filled with drives down the coast in the Miata. Thank you.
Go Warriors, get that Zion Williamson. I hear he's a real basketball guy.